Yeah, I think you could see a draft pick. One, the Eagles like taking a quarterback in the draft every couple of years.
They didn't
Sometimes
last year.
yeah, exactly.
John McMullen and Johnny McCown here on Birds 360. I've got another hour to go today. And oh, by the way, in case you haven't heard, this is going to be it for us for the week. We're going to take a couple of days off. The entire JAKIB Media YouTube channel is going to take a couple of days off leading up to the Super Bowl and a couple of days after the Super Bowl. So we appreciate you tuning in today. While you're here, do the right thing. Show some love for your boys. Hit that like button. We're going to need to pump up our algorithm before we go away for a week. Hopefully not out of sight, out of mind, because all the shows right here on YouTube. Any ones you want to go back to, we've had some really good guests on over the last, what are we talking about, 10 months, Johnny Mac, we've been doing this? We're early February. We started in April. So, yeah, that's 10 months.
We've coming been up on the 1-year anniversary. What show are we on, Jody? Do you still have it?
212 shows we've logged so far.
Yeah, it's been quite the whirlwind. I think we've done a good job overall, you and I.
There you go. Pat yourself on the back. No, thank you very much, because you're patting me on the back.
Yes.
I don't want to pat you on the back because people tune in to see you each and every single day. All right, two things I want to do before we get Bob Groats up here, Delco Times Eagle columnist, who we always have fun with whenever he comes on. One, I'm going to lead you into by asking you an NFL trivia question. Are you a trivia guy? You and I have done these 212 shows. I've never determined in my own mind whether you're a trivia guy or not.
What do you mean by trivia guy? I mean,
do you like it? Do you feel you're good at it?
Nah, I don't think I'm good at it because everything runs together to me. So, if some people say, "What Super Bowl?" I'm not good at that. I'm not good at numbers and I'm not going to say Super Bowl 8 versus Super Bowl 23.
Right.
That I'm not good at because everything kind of runs together to me.
So a good hedge by you on the question. So we'll see if you get the answer to this trivia question, which was asked to me last night. I sure as hell didn't get it right. But then I was surprised because I asked it to somebody else and they did get it right. How many active quarterbacks in the NFL right now have 2 Super Bowl rings?
Active quarterbacks have 2 Super Bowl rings. Oof. It's got to be a backup somewhere, doesn't it? What are we talking about? Mahomes has 1. Aaron has 1. You got Tom's retired.
Right.
Nick's got, how many does Nick have? Nick has, did he get another one as a backup? No, he's only got 1. Hey, Carson's got 1, by the way, people.
Right. Ben went out the door with a couple.
Ben went out the door with a couple, yeah. No, I don't know. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I didn't get it either, John, because I'm going through the
Is it a backup?
I'm only looking at the starters. You are correct. Your line of logic is on point. Think New England.
Who was the Brian Hoyer? Who is their backup now? Kevin O'Connell's
he's playing elsewhere.
Boy, that tells you what the New England. I mean, you don't even think about that.
He was playing elsewhere till last week.
Boy, who am I missing? Matt Castle's long gone.
He was the starting quarterback in the NFC Championship game.
Case Keenum wasn't the backup.
No, last week he was the starting quarterback in the NFC Championship game.
Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G's got 2 Super Bowl rings.
Oh, that's terrible.
That is.
So I'm not good at it. Yeah.
No, believe me. At least you figured out the backup part of it.
Yeah.
I never even went there. I'm only thinking about the starters, and I'm going, there aren't any. There's no Brady's out, Ben's out. Nobody's got 2 rings. Yeah. Oh yes, Jimmy Garoppolo does. I completely forgotten as well that he was the backup. He's actually gotten a championship ring in San Francisco, but he has 2 Super Bowl rings sitting there.
Yeah, I always have that, more so with the NBA, and people would, and people would talk about guys with a bunch of rings, and because they're on a team with LeBron James or
Oh,
Michael Jordan.
LeBron has gotten guys more rings than anybody on the planet.
Yeah, well, Michael Jordan, even Robert Horry, like when people would say, who's a very good player and certainly a big in key moments, and he's got a ton of rings, and people would argue he's a Hall of Famer. I'm like, no, he's not. He's a great role player, tremendous role player. Just because you have a lot of rings on the backs of superstars doesn't make you
The
a
guy
Hall
who
of Fame.
the guy who's gotten that argument for some people over the last couple of years is Iggy.
Yeah, Andre. Same thing. Great player. I used to laud him when he was here. I thought people were way too hard on him.
Agreed.
Really good player. Not a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of rings since he left here. Yeah,
I don't think he's all. He got that one MVP in the finals.
Yeah,
which is a key element to the whole argument. If he's a Hall of Famer, yeah, you and I are agreeing.
Very good player. Very underrated here because he was the best player here, and he got paid like a star. It's not his fault. Very good player.
The reason why I went down the Garoppolo trivia question route for you was, did you see what Tom Brady said yesterday?
Yeah, he said he might come back. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I love that Tom. I don't think Tom's coming back because, if it's week 15, week 16, you lose your quarterback. Say New England is Mac Jones is going great guns, and, he gets injured late in the season like Carson Wentz did in 2017, which I hope doesn't happen. And the Patriots, what a storybook ending that would be, huh? If he went back to the Patriots and won another one. But I don't think he'd do it. I don't think he'd consider it, knowing how competitive he is. He would consider that, and I hate to throw this word out there, cheating. Cheating with Tom Brady and the Patriots. Cheating in the fact that if you don't go through the whole thing, you don't really earn it. That's how I think he would look upon it.
Well, I would disagree with that, but it lends itself to a good question. First things first, why he said this on his podcast yesterday. Don't know this. Jody McDonald speculation. Someone from the podcast, doubt Jim Gray, maybe a producer thereof, an investor on the podcast, whatever, said, you realize, Tom, you screwed us last week. You came on the podcast, said, I'm still going through the process, and I haven't made any decisions. Less than 24 hours later, he steps up and says, all right, I'm done. So he made his own podcast irrelevant by how he handled his business last week. So I'm thinking someone might have said to him, yo, Tom, you owe us. You really did kind of stick it in our eye last week by not announcing your retirement here on the podcast, but doing so less than 24 hours later. Why the hell would anybody listen to the podcast when you just put out the pap that you do? You got to throw us a bone. Give us something. Like, give us something we can hang our hat on. Oh, you're not slamming the door on retirement. You're going to keep your mind open to it. I think that could have been very designated the way that it fell out. But here's a question about the line of logic that you laid out there about, what happens if Mac Jones gets hurt in week 13? And Tom's still in great physical shape. And yeah, he kind of understands you got a relationship with Coach Belichick. New offense coordinator there in New England, because theirs did beat it out to Vegas to become their head coach. But we know how smart Brady is. He could probably pick up their offensive system in 2 hours if he worked hard enough at it. Can he even do that? He is under contract this year to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah. No, he couldn't. They would have to, work something out as far as, and by that time, yeah, you bring up a good point. I was just thinking about it. If he did come back, it would almost have to be with Tampa Bay because he is under contract. So that is another hurdle as well.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of it more as a storybook type thing, but
right.
Yeah. If he was going to come back, he'd almost have to come back with Tampa Bay, especially late in the season because the trade deadline would be long gone. Trade deadline's around Halloween, so something before to go to another team would have to happen before, and he probably wouldn't be considering it that early in the season. But who knows? Maybe, maybe Giselle wants him out of the house.
Right, and it has to do with intent and also paperwork, because I know I'm going to make draw a comparison between Major League Baseball in the 70s and the NFL in 2022. I don't know if this comparison works or holds any water whatsoever. But when my father was general manager, he traded for Mickey Lolich, a name that you and I will recognize. A whole bunch of our fans probably won't. Who the hell's Mickey Lolich? He was a very talented pitcher for the Tigers in the 60s into the 70s, a little overweight. My father traded Rusty Staub for him, who was a pretty damn good player in his own right. And Lolich came in, had one mediocre year for the Mets, not as bad as his record looked, but it wasn't anything special. And then he retired. And my father did what he had to do. He just put in the paperwork to cover their butt so that he doesn't unretire. But he only did it for 1 year. Sometimes they do it for major years. Lolich sat out a year and then said, you know what, I'm coming back. And he signed with the San Diego Padres, whatever. My father got nothing for him. He got 1 year out of him. Rusty stuck around in the bigs for another 10 years thereafter, getting hits for several different teams, including coming back and rejoining the Mets after my father had already left. Anyway, so the Tampa needs to handle their paperwork correctly with Tom Brady, but I think he did that for podcast purposes, just to give his podcast something a little juicy.
Yeah, maybe Tom's as media savvy as he is football savvy.
Oh, yeah, I would not doubt that one iota. All right, J-Mac, question I want to ask you before we get Bob Groats up. Maybe we'll put it to him as well. We are starting to see mock drafts. I mentioned earlier, I'm seeing some. Shockingly, it's Philadelphia guys who are putting out mock drafts who have really talented players, in my mind, falling down to 15, 16.
Funny
19.
how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking. In other mock drafts by national individuals, I'm seeing some of the top secondary guys go in the top 10, who others have falling down to the Eagles in the middle of the first round. So it is the season to be mocking, is what I'm saying here. And it'll continue to play itself out through the combine and then to the individual workouts. And then, of course, the draft itself. Couple positions I want to ask you about, not first round action, but later in the draft type action that I don't know the Eagles are going to select anyone at these two positions, or maybe they will. That's why I'm asking you. The first position is tight end. I watched the Senior Bowl this week. A couple of the tight ends actually look pretty good to me. Look like players. They're not going to be guys taken in the first round. Tight ends very infrequently. There is no Pitts in this year's draft. There's nobody who's going to be taken in the first half of the first round. No chance, no shot. But there looked like there were some nice tight ends in Mobile this past weekend. The Eagles certainly have Dallas Goedert. And then they've got Jack Stoll and Tyree Jackson. Is tight end a position? Eagles have 10 picks in this upcoming draft. A lot of selections. Later round, certainly day 3 at the earliest. Are the Eagles going to take a tight end in this year's draft?
Yeah, I could see it. Day 3 more. I don't think you would see it early in the draft because obviously Dallas Goedert is where he is in his career. And, he's already turning out to be a star player at that particular position. They do like what Jack Stoll offered, and they only expect him to get a little bit better. And remember, his role would be more on the blocking side anyway, and he's good at that. And then Tyree Jackson. The one thing that concerns you is Tyree tore his ACL in week 18, so 9-month injury. You get hurt. Week 18 was early January. So do the math. That's September. He doesn't have an off season. He might be able to get back for the start of the regular season. But I wouldn't be surprised if they took a tight end on day 3 if they like him. And they'll certainly bring in an undrafted kid or two like they did last year with Jack Stoll. So you do have to have a bit of a safety net because of Tyree's injury, but he's still young, and these days ACLs aren't as devastating as they once were. May take a little time. It's probably not going to be himself, but hopefully he's young enough to get back to where he was before, and they thought he was a really exciting developmental prospect. So by no means did I think they're closing the book on Tyree Jackson in that transition, but you got to be realistic as well. So yeah, they're going to bring in a body or two, and I think it could start on day 3 of the draft.
All right. Let me ask you about one other tight end player, then I'll give you the other position I want to know about. Noah, and I'm not going to take a shot on the last name. I know you know how to pronounce it. The tight end that they had, he got plucked from them. They brought him
Yeah,
back this year. What's his last name?
to guy.
The guy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's in the mix as well. They signed him to a futures deal. Probably should have mentioned him as well. Um, I think he's clearly behind Jack and Tyree at this point, but he's in that mix. He'll be one of the guys battling for sort of that third tight end slot with whomever they bring in from a body type. But I don't think he's a lot was made. That was weird to me. The Eagles certainly wanted to keep Noah when he was an undrafted player, and they wanted to get him on the practice squad. And Indianapolis picked him up on waivers, um, and people made a big deal out of it. And the Eagles wanted to keep him, no question. They wanted to get him back on the practice squad. But that's what happens in this league. Occasionally, you lose a player. But if you wanted him that bad, just like they did last year with Tyree Jackson, who was injured, and they still kept him because remember, he was dealing with the fracture in his back, and they still didn't want to leave him the potential for someone to claim him on waivers. Same thing with Jordan Mailata when he was a young player. Jordan Mailata had no right being on the Eagles 53-man roster when he was a rookie. Certainly wasn't the 53rd best player in training camp, but they didn't want to risk losing him. So if you put somebody on waivers, you risk losing them, and you don't like them that much. I remember we had a discussion with Brett Toth, and the Eagles were upset. And I said, that's probably the wrong word. You called me out on it. So I'll give you credit. They thought they wanted to have him. And that's the same thing as Noah. But if you really wanted a guy that bad, you wouldn't put him on waivers. So
Right.
I don't think he's, don't put an asterisk next to his name. I don't think you look at Noah Tagai and say he's going to be a big part of this team in the future, but he'll get an opportunity to go to training camp and win a job.
All right. The other position I want to get in, and we got Bob Coates joining us in less than 5 here. Assuming Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback, assuming Gardner Minshew is still here as the backup quarterback, how much do the Eagles actually like Reed Stinnett? Are they going to use a day 3 pick on a quarterback, or are they going to go the undrafted route? Damn, now I'm forgetting. Who is the quarterback they brought in undrafted this past year, who many people thought was going to get drafted? He wasn't. Former Georgia guy.
Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah.
What the heck?
Who,
Big
Jamie
guy,
Newman.
good size.
Jamie Newman. Yeah.
Newman, right.
Yeah.
Who was undrafted. And
Yeah.
if you go undrafted, I think the Eagles are definitely going to bring in another quarterback body, even if Hurts, Minshew, and Stinnett are still here. But will they use a draft pick somewhere between rounds 4 and 7 on a quarterback this year?
Yeah, I think you could see a draft pick. One, the Eagles like taking a quarterback in the draft every couple of years. Sometimes
They did last year.
Yeah, exactly. So now they're on, and it did. You're right about Jamie Newman but that's a lot of where the group thing comes in because if you lead up to the draft and everybody would say, well, Jamie Newman's, going to be a day 3 pick, certainly. And all of a sudden the Eagles get him as an undrafted free agent. Everybody knows who he was because he played at Wake Forest. He was going to go to Georgia, but I think he opted out because of COVID. So he's kind of a big name on the college level. And they're like, wow, Jamie Newman. I know Jamie Newman. he showed up to the first minicamp, and he didn't even get out of that. That was it. They saw him for like 2 days and said, "All right, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for showing up. Here's your Eagles T-shirt. Here's the door." Yeah, he didn't, and that's why it took me a while to come up with him.
Right.
Evidently,
he
I
was
had
here
to
about
look.
20 minutes.
Yeah, he was here about 20 minutes, and then he went up to the Hamilton Tiger Cats up in the CFL. So hopefully Jamie can get things going in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, he got waived in June. He didn't even show anything. So yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles are going to draft a quarterback somewhere. And remember, this is all hedging on the fact that they don't acquire a quarterback or go in a different direction at quarterback one. But even if, it is Hurts and Minshew as we all expect, yeah, I think they'd like to improve and bring in a better developmental prospect as quarterback 3 than Reed Sinnett.
We've got a bunch of weeks to get through before we find out if the Eagles do just that. The draft is something we're looking at down the road. Much closer is the Super Bowl on Sunday. That's just one of many topics we're going to discuss with our next guests, Mr. Positivity himself. Bob Groats joins us next here on Birds 365.